interview with Professor Godfrey Ofomata, Professor Emeritus of Geography at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and the editor of A Survey of the Igbo Nation. Welcome, Godfrey. Just give us a bit of your background.
Well, briefly, I am of Igbo origin. My parents are Igbo.
Who are the Igbo?
Igbo. I-G-B-O, not I-B-O. I-G-B-O. Igbo.
What's their origins? I know they're in southeast Nigeria now.
I am from the town of Nnewi, N-N-E-W-I, Nnewi, in Anambra State, in eastern part of Nigeria. Anambra State of Nigeria.
What are the actual origins of the Igbo people?
Well, the origins of the Igbo people, very briefly, because this could be a book of its own, and it is being expounded properly in volume 2 of our Survey of the Igbo Nation, which is at an advanced stage of production now. There are 3 origins canvassed. One of them is the Oriental origin, that is, Igbo are Hebraic in origin. They are part of Hebrew. So there is a chapter in my volume 2, which is now under production, called The Hebrew Origin of the Igbo. There, the things are properly authenticated. Now, the reason behind this attribution is because certain similarities in the manner, social life of the Igbo and the Jews, the Hebrews, are the same. There is similarity in their behavior. For instance, the naming of a child, then the circumcision of the male. There are certain affinities, even in words. So it is envisaged, it is said that some years before the main Exodus in the Bible, are you aware of Exodus?
Yeah.
Some time before then, a group of the Hebrews, led by Eri, E-R-I, because of the subjection to which they were put by the Egyptians, decided to move with a group of people. He moved and wandered for about 10 years, walking through Egypt, then through the desert and so on, until they landed in the part of the country where we are, the eastern part, a river basin called Omambala River Basin, and settled there. And from there, they spread out. If you remember, the main Exodus is supposed to have taken place in one version in 1446 BC. And this group, led by Eri, was supposed to have migrated from Egypt some 20 years or so before. So their movement might have been
1466. Okay.
Or so BC, just before the main Exodus. That is one. So from this point at Omambala River Basin, where the effects settled, they then spread to other parts of current Igboland. And there are affinities. Eri and his descendants, we can pinpoint areas where Eri's influence has been in some of the towns that are still in existence in Igboland today. The second origin canvas is that of the Niger-Benue Confluence. You know, the river Niger and Benue, they meet some point in Nigeria. It is said that the Igbo, some people say that the Igbo come from there, in keeping with the Kwa subgroup of population, that they migrated from there. The Kwa also includes people in Ghana, down the Congo, and so on. But that they migrated from there and eventually settled where they are now. The only thing with this option is that there is a possibility of the people migrating from other places than the Niger-Benue Confluence to get to where they are today. So there isn't much credibility about it, but it is one of the options. Then the third option is that of the Homeland Origin. In other words, that from a certain section of Igboland, mainly what we call the Nsukka or Kigwe area, there is a Cuesta high land running from between these two areas, from one Nsukka to Olu area. That it is from this area that the Igbo migrated. But then they are Igbo themselves. So how could they have migrated from there? It has a lot of questions about it. And there is, from oral evidence, the old people who are around there do not have any record of migration from within. Okay. So these are the three main areas. The most authentic for now would appear to be the Hebrew origin, but it is being properly elaborated in what we have in hand now.
Tell us then just some of the social and political structures of the Igbo and some of their customs. I mean, you mentioned circumcision, but some of the other things that make people identifiably Igbo.
Yeah, the Igbo, before now, some of the people studying Igboland, the Igbos and Igboland are not from the area. Without equivocation and without insinuating anything, we could easily say that most of the people who had earlier studied the Igbo and Igboland had inadequate information. And so they went ahead and labeled the Igbo, gave a number of names to the Igbo, and continued to transpose such norms on the Igbo, which are alien to them. For instance, some of these writers have said that the Igbo are acephalous, or that they are stateless. And when you look at it, with the definition of acephalous and stateless, you come to realize that these are not Igbo. For instance, by stateless societies, people usually mean those societies which lack centralized authority or administrative machinery and or constituted judicial institutions. In other words, areas that lack government and in which there are no sharp divisions of rank, status, and wealth. On the other hand, an acephalous society is defined as a society that lacks political leaders or hierarchy. And to say the least, none of these definitions is Igbo. They are definitely not Igbo society, either of the past or of the present. It has also been said by some that what they have, the Igbo had, was excessive democracy, or what they called ordered anarchy. And we don't want to comment much on that, except to say that if indeed it is excessive democracy, should it not really be commended? Because currently the world is looking for the establishment of democracies all over. So if in fact you come across a place that can be said to have excessive democracy, shouldn't they gain a prize?
So when you say excessive democracy, was that because everything was run at a town and village level rather than having one overarching emperor or whatever like that, or main one leader? Like things were actually at a village level where people could participate in the discussions and in the decisions that were made for that area.
In the Igbo setup, yes, we have a centralized place. Everybody gathers in a appointed place. Somebody is in charge, an elder. But everybody has a right to say something. At the end of it, we normally go by consensus. I don't know if that can be called excessive democracy. But if it is, I say that being excessive, whoever describes it should give us a prize. Because they are laboring now to square up with ordinary democracy. The point we are making is that it is wrong to describe any society as stateless, as I have defined it, or as a phallus, as already defined, probably because the structures of that society do not conform to any particular type. Wrong.
Say a council meets and it makes a decision. Did that writ run across the whole area where the Igbos lived, or did it only run within that village or within that small town or that regional, maybe a confederation of 6 villages? Or did it run across the whole Igbo population?
In the Igbo setup, for instance, there is representative authority. From each segment time in our meetings, we go by consensus and do not go into much of divisive struggle. The consensus normally goes. Currently, in contemporary setting, because of the advances in technology and so on, you have people arguing their heads off as if their life depended on it. They would die or live because of it. That is not the original Igbo thinking. It is being paraded now from the borrowings from the so-called advanced societies, but most of it sets people back. People go quarreling where there is nothing to quarrel about because everybody wants to be the winner, and that is not Igbo. The Igbo want to move forward. Once there is justification in what is being done, everybody goes along with it. That is the Igbo. You cannot cheat them.
Yeah. I interviewed somebody else and he said the main focus is like peace and how to improve the neighborhood.
What?
The main focus of like, he was talking generally, like, you know, what people in West Africa should focus on, but he said this thing that right now the main focus should be peace and improving the neighborhood. How do we improve the neighborhood together?
No, that is the central thing. Mind you, still in all of it, there are small misunderstandings, but eventually the Igbo works for this peace. Because if one can say the quarrel doesn't lead you anywhere, it only detracts and slows you back, so that development is not forthcoming, where people are quarreling. And most of the quarrel arises from selfish endeavors of people who want to win it all. That is what the original Igbo setting was not like that. It is being imported now, but it is being fought because we don't want a situation where we will spend all our energy quarreling instead of mapping out development strategies and following them.
So what were the effects on the Igbo people of incorporation into like the Nigerian nation state? How did that affect them?
Well, the Igbo is such a group of people that every environment they will thrive in it. There is hardly any environment Igbo cannot thrive in, both physical and social. What the amalgamation of northern and southern Nigeria did, that is fusing the whole country into one. One, I can say without equivocation that in several respects is drawing the Igbo back. Because the Igbo are a people on the move. They move. They just move ahead, confront what is in front to move. They are very resilient, and there is hardly anything you can say they wouldn't like to get into. Find them everywhere. Okay. But then, having been put together with the spread of Nigeria, you have to give up something to accommodate the immediate neighborhood.
Because I noticed that the Igbo, a lot of them moved up to the north and traded up in the north, in the Sultanate areas.
You see, the Igbo is found everywhere. Most of the north, there are certain sections of northern part of Nigeria that were developed just by the Igbo. In spite of the Biafra War, which moved all of us back, most of them have returned to the place. They are itinerant in the sense that they move along, they venture out to mine new areas. And once they come to a place, they do not discriminate. They develop as if they were developing their own home. That is the disadvantage we have suffered from time to time, because some sections of the country, for no reason, after some time, just descend on these people, either loot their shops, burn them for one reason or the other. And yet, they cannot maintain them. But that has not deterred the Igbo. They keep moving. They are itinerant. They cannot, all of us cannot be contained at home. So we are moving, venturing into new ground to see how to break through.
Okay, you mentioned the Biathlon War. What was your role in it?
Well, I was fighting in defense of Biafra. being a pure Biafran. I was in the fighting corps. I had the rank of a lieutenant colonel and commanded combatants. I had a militia set up, a sector 22 of the militia, which is equivalent to an army battalion. Then eventually I was converted into the army in this rank of lieutenant colonel and took command of a full battalion for a full year, 18 months, before I went to a division to become the PSO, Principal Staff Officer General of that division, effectively second in command to the division. That's the role. Throughout the period of the war, I was at the front line.
Like when the war ended, I mean, the kind of settlement that came out of it, I mean, were you happy with that, or did you think that driving for Biafra is always going to stay there among the Igbo because they're always going to feel marginalized in the Nigerian state?
Life in Biafra and life in Nigeria today?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Biafra was difficult at some stage, but we loved it because there is nothing like being on your own. And that is why we fought the war tenaciously for 30 months without blinking. Even when almost the whole world was against us and the big powers, so-called, teamed up against us, we were fighting. Even when we were being denied the importation of arms, you know that we manufactured our own arms. There is one called Ubunigwe, which they sought all over, these developed nations sought all over to know the makeup of it. Everything in it came from Biafra except one item. And that was the main machinery which we used. Because Ubunigwe literally means killing in plenty, killing in thousands. It doesn't spare anything on its path. Mm-hmm. And most of it was within a killing range of 1,000 meters, 1,000 yards. That is, it meets a man, you will not find a man again there. They were made there. As a matter of fact, the end of the war, the abrupt end of the war, slowed us back in the event of invention, because it would have been quite interesting by now if Biafra survived that war 37 years. It would have been a different thing. We wouldn't, I don't know if we will still be part of Africa. That is not an exaggeration. Because of the innate force in the people, they are inventive, and that war should have opened the mind of the world to know that there is something, and in the interest of the world, it would have been better to cooperate with this force than to be pretending that it is dim. That's all. We faced what an ordinary nation would succumb in when they started treating us to starvation, forbidding Caritas and all these charitable people bringing food to us. They thought we would quench. No, because we had a reason for the battle. The battle was brought to us and we had to fight it. So that difficulty apart didn't demoralize us, not at all. But the end came the way it did, and the experience, in any case, remains, and no one can buy it.
I want to move on to your book now, A Survey of the Igbo Nation. What are some of the themes that are covered by that book?
Or the issues?
Yeah.
No, we treated every segment. The book covers the history, geography, economy, and the social fabric of the nation. The nation. What I call the Igbo Nation, because it is a nation state within a nation, the nation of Nigeria. And it was segmented in 4 parts, 4 major parts, apart from the rubrics of introduction. And that introduction, chapter 1, is a major work. It summarizes every other chapter in the book. But we have 4 parts. Part 1 deals with the history of the Igbo as we recorded them then. Part 2 deals with the Igbo environment. Part 3 deals with art and culture of Igboland, and part 4 dealt with resources of Igboland and their development. There were a total of 41 chapters in that book. Apart from chapter 1, which is introduction and which summarizes every other thing, there is chapter 41, which is a bibliographic supplement. It contains 1,095 entries, apart from almost 2,000 entries at the end of each chapter. End of each chapter has its own bibliography. But this bibliographic supplement, which is a chapter, brings things that are not mainly focused in the book, but which are on Igbo land. And part 1, the history of Igbo people, has 3 chapters. Part 2, the environment, Igbo environment, has 12 chapters. Part 3, on the arts and culture of Igboland, has 10 chapters. And part 4, the resources of Igboland and their development, has 14 chapters. Now, each chapter deals with a particular theme. If you like, I can just give examples. History of Igbo people then dealt with archaeology, the early prehistory of Igboland, then the latter prehistory of Igboland, and then the historical perspective. From the Igbo environment, the geology, climate and vegetation, relief, drainage, and landforms, 1 chapter. Then soils and soil erosion, these I took myself, because that's my area. Then early peopling and cultural diversity of Igbo people, population, and so on and so forth.
Okay. How did you decide on the authors, people who were going to write the chapters?
Okay. Now, I have been in the field. I've been in education. I taught in the university for 38 years. I know my contemporaries and peers with their special fields of interest. And so the first thing was to source these people by communicating them. I wrote them, inviting them, July 1980, calling them to contribute chapters on the particular areas I gave them. Like somebody, arts and culture, I said, could you please contribute for me a chapter on the language and dialectics of Igbo, for instance, or Igbo architecture, or minstrelsy in Igbo land, for instance, or the natural resources of Igbo land, their geopolitical dimension in contemporary Nigeria, or the Igbo in contemporary Nigeria, this type of thing, farm implements of Igbo land. Each of these, I knew people in those areas, and so I addressed this. I found out 50 invitations, and thank God, I received 36 positive responses, no negative. And these 36 really made up the book of 41 chapters, because some people contributed more than 1.
You mentioned something when I spoke to you before, that all the authors were Igbo themselves.
All the 37 authors,
Yeah.
including my humble self, are Igbo.
That makes the book very unique in that, because...
Oh yes, I said the Igbo was talking about themselves the way they know themselves best. You were not saying that non-Igbos cannot study Igbo land. But these are people who were born, nurtured in Igbo land, and who were talking from the experience of on the ground. They had adequate information, at least as far as the areas in which they wrote was concerned. So that gives us joy. Not that we wouldn't have welcomed people who are not Igbo, because you have such people who may know 1 or 2 things about Igbo land. But we thank God that this came directly from the Igbo writing about themselves.
What are some of the problems that the Igbo are facing today? And I mean, themes that maybe came out from the book, and then looking at like what the Igbo are facing today, what would you say?
The problems, well, I think from my own perspective, the major problem is soil erosion.
Okay.
Soil erosion, thank God, this is my area. I took my doctorate in soil erosion some 44 years ago, and I have written extensively on this.
So what's the cause of the erosion, given that you said it's a riverine area?
It's not really very riverine. Most of it is inland, apart from the southern segment, the Port Harcourt area that is near the coast. The bulk of Igboland is in the interior of eastern Nigeria. But the point is that the geologic makeup is mostly sedimentary rock that weather into brittle materials that can be broken down easily, especially when there is no compaction of clay and so on, or when this compaction has been reduced in quantity. That type of soil is amenable to incision of runoff water, that is, low floods when they overrun the ground, or trailing down from high slopes to the lower level. They cut incision, which, before you know it, now develop, expand into what we call gullies. But there are normally two factors in soil erosion that I've identified through my writing. The first is physical, the physical attributes of the place. And there you mostly talk about the surface configuration of the place, the heights amended in it, then the nature of soil materials, are they brittle or what? Then, of course, there is climate. These are essentially the major physical components. And there is vegetation. With regard to the human component, what is there is the level of use of the soil. Now, previous writers, mostly those who are not quite familiar, just attributed soil erosion to human action, what they call bad farming technique. We are not saying that man does not contribute to erosion, but we are definite, obviously definite, that he is not the major contributor. For instance, eastern Nigeria is quite heavily populated. It has an average population density of about 560 people per square kilometer. That is quite high. But the erosion, and then they practice the same type of human activities, agriculture, and so on. And they are mostly at the same level of technology, that is talking of the average village folk. But the erosion is more intensive in some particular areas than in others. The type of cultivation is the same. So our conclusion is that any differences in the type of soil erosion, and particularly in their magnitude, has to be explained from extra-human factors. And by that we mean through physical factors. Incidentally, these physical factors are the most difficult ones to decipher. With man, once you cut vegetation, it was forest, you cut it, they tell you, so after this, it will degenerate, then eventually erosion would come.
Did the Igbo practice a rotation system that would allow land to lie fallow for a period of time to regenerate?
Yes, we have. Our type of cultivation is rotational, and we cultivate a piece, we leave it again for X years, which is dwindling now. The period of fallow is decreasing because population is fast growing. But the point is that you hardly ever cultivate an area to total exposure, particularly those sloping down where you have slopes. So you have this fallow system, and as I said, the soil itself, the total environment is very exposed to erosion because of the makeup of the surface material and because of rainfall, which is the main agent of erosion.
Is that because the rainfall is not being captured and it's just running off the land and washing?
No, it's the nature of the climate. You have intensive convection rain. You cannot control them. Okay. When they come down, then the runoff ramifies depending on the nature. They just the flood. They amalgamate themselves and start flowing down. They have no option. They have to go down slope. And when they unite now and see get at some of these mobile places, they start by infiltrating cracks, things like cracks, which will soon develop through basal expansion to gully. This is the headmaster of erosion, gully X, yes?
The private land ownership, people starting to say this land only belongs to me as an individual or me and my one small group of family, did that. And this process of enclosure where every land has to belong to an individual named person or it becomes the property of central government. Has that had an effect as well?
Well, yes, because of increasing population, the land available is dwindling. So there is the tendency to cultivate any piece of land available, including those near slopes. But part of the management strategy is to restrict cultivation very close to the edges of existing erosion sites, so that they do not excavate the functioning of the erosion itself, because erosion, particularly gully erosion, is a dynamic process. Once runoff comes in, it regenerates itself and starts moving. I'll tell you that there is no way in which one can stop cultivation. The only aim is to ensure that land not under cultivation is under some degree of vegetal cover, that it is covered and not exposed to the vagaries of the elements. I must say that this is being difficult to attain, but every effort is being made so that any cultivated area is really ringed around with a ridge that will not easily permit water to flow from it into an adjoining region. Occasionally there are breaks, of course. A flood can break, but it is still effective in containing the quantum of runoff that reaches the volatile areas.
You know, in the Delta, there's a lot of pollution through the gas flaring and the oil. Is there a lot of that across the Igbo lands?
There is pollution. You know, Igbo land is developing highly, developing speedily. So some of the pollution effects you find in these other countries, particularly in Europe and America, is affecting Igbo land. But it is not to the degree of the quantum of carbon dioxide exerted into the air. But apart from that, there is pollution now that comes from these gully areas. They go from relatively higher areas, and the components they are carrying along, the flood is carrying along, is eventually deposited somewhere downslope in adjoining rivers and so on. Some of it suffer from extreme pollution because of what the flood gathers from the land as it journeys. In fact, some of the rivers are being choked with the deposit to the extent that some of them are threatened from existing. So there is that level of pollution, both chemical and then
The soil itself being in the wrong place. What you were saying, like, I mean, this whole soil degradation and everything, is that causing a migration off the land into urban areas or even for people to go abroad?
You see, land in Igbo land is owned on individual family basis. Occasionally, government, in quote, confiscates land for public use, the establishment of particular things like industries and so on. But most of the time, this is not within a living area of any settlement. It's at the margin that are not fully inhabited. But land is individually owned. There is hardly any piece of land in Igbo land that doesn't belong to one family or the other. And so you cannot just come in and do anything you want with it. Even government confiscation has to be paid for adequately. And some people resist and go to court because even if you give them money, there is nothing they are going to do with it. They need land on which to settle. They need land on which to do their farming. But there is no problem with land. Of course, occasionally you have people quarreling over land. But that is within families and family units, extended families. quarreling how to distribute their land. But each piece of land is owned by one component of the nation or the other. There is hardly any land that is just for all comers.
But if a land is not productive anymore, will people want to migrate to the bigger towns or go abroad? If they can't make a living off their own land, is there a general process of people, they might still hold the land, but the land is not productive enough to feed them, so they move to the urban areas?
If any piece of land is somewhere, and some people have intentions of going there, they must seek out the owners. They will seek out the owners and negotiate with them. If they get into the place, the consequences are their own. They end up in some fighting that will lead to death, or it will just straight go for litigation. But you cannot get to a piece of land and say, oh, for long this land has not been used, and you get into it. You cannot. Because as I said, every piece belongs to somebody. And if you seek out whom it belongs to, then you negotiate. You can buy. Some people are disposed to sell part of their land, or you can rent for a number of years and quit. But if you want to put a permanent structure, then you must buy if the people are ready to sell. But not every family is ready to dispose of its land on freehold.
So how do you see the future for the Igbo people?
You see, as I said, the Igbo, Mike, you remember that the people are called Igbo people, or the Igbo, or Igbos. The Igbo or Igbo people, or Igbos. You don't say the Igbos, and you don't say the Igbo people. It is the Igbo or Igbos or Igbo people.
Yeah.
They are a resilient group of people. They are highly adventurous. Anywhere there is something that will lead to success, they will venture there. No matter the odds, they will go there. And there is hardly any country in this world where you say you will not find an Igbo. In fact, I was surprised when I was told that it's not just one in Siberia and the Anchorage. You know where the Anchorage is?
Anchorage, yeah. Are we up there?
Hardly any place where you don't find them. As long as there is opportunity to do something through which life will be enhanced, they'll go there. And they are properly motivated in the sense that once they venture out, nothing can stop them. As I said also, they are quite inventive. Let me illustrate. You can check that out if it is true or not. I am informed reliably that the two fastest computers in the world today were made by Igbos.
Yeah.
Both of them are in the United States today.
One of them, Philip Emeagwele. Philip.
Megwali is one of them.
Yeah.
Another one, I don't know his name. Yes, they are Igbo. So there is nothing they can not venture into. And if it is competition, they compete fairly. It's not kill me or kill you. It is a question of if my own is better than yours, better accept that I'm better than you. No pretend. So I see the future of the Igbo as very bright. Doesn't matter what today is reading. Tomorrow for the Igbo, I'll assure you, is very bright.
So what are you working on now?
Now, what I'm saying is, wherever the people are, they are venturing, they are moving. And there is a lot of resource in that nation. A lot of resources, both natural and human. Its human capacity is well developed. And then the natural resources have not quite untapped. Most of the oil being exploited in Nigeria is from part of Igboland. And there are untapped ones in the interior. There is a quantum of natural gas existing somewhere in the heart of Igboland that can do for Nigeria. Let me not exaggerate, yes, but it is still bottled up, has not been exploited. Then there is iron ore. There is iron ore because of massive exposures of iron oxide concretion. Most of this is already being used at the Ajaokuta build the common level, you will find them. This is where I put my hope. Not to talk of what they are known mostly for outside farming, that is what is called business, not 419, but real business, transaction. They are deep in it. And then, of course, in the transport industry, you must know of some names in transport industry who are Igbo. Quite a number of them making haulage throughout the country, both human and goods haulage. And of course, education is expanding fast. I think it has currently about 30 or 35 universities, and we are not done yet, because if you educate a people, then you have development assured. That is where I anchor my hope, and why I said what I said. I'm completely optimistic on the future of the Igbo.
You're working on another book, yeah? The follow-up to this survey of the Igbo Nation, yeah?
Yes.
When can we expect to see that?
Well, I don't know now. Right now, I have received and edited 18 chapters. I want to get some more, because there are some on the pipeline. I expect them shortly. But I don't envisage that this volume will be as voluminous as the first one that went to 703 pages with 41 chapters. I envisage that this volume 2 will be a little less than that. It will not be a 200, 300, or 400 page book. I believe it will get at least to 500 or 600 pages. I don't know the time yet. I'll wait, but after some time, before the middle of next year, I must be rounding up.
Okay, you have to make a decision about, like, editing it, publishing it.
The publishers, no. We are scouting for publishers. The first one, the volume you saw, and I think you picked a copy.
Yes.
Yeah, that one is published in Igboland, in Onitsha, by Africana First Publishers. We are looking a little beyond. We will want, if it is possible, for a university press outside Nigeria to take this, because Igboland, I believe, interests quite a lot of people. But if we don't get a reliable publisher outside, then we have people who can do it. But we want to diversify our frontiers.
Have you any final words? Yeah, I'm going to round up the interview now.
No, what I will have to say is that I like where I am. I like where I have been born and brought up, Igboland, and I look forward to its future with optimism. And definitely, this series, this project on a survey of the Igbo Nation, I don't know how many it would come to, but I know that even the second one I am editing now may not be the end. These would make the Igbo Nation known to people. The series will publicize Igboland to people, because many have been asking questions about that part of Nigeria. And it is our pleasure, really, to be able to be contributing in that area right now.
Professor, thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
I'm delighted.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
NUBIART, a different perspective on the African world.